The final straw was when I had my first period while in school, and everyone started pointing at me and screaming. Naturally, I had nobody else to go to but my mother. When I told her I had got my period, she asked me what I wanted her to do about it. I asked her if I could get some tampons, and she laughed right in my face. She said that tampons were much too expensive, and instead instructed me to use rolled-up toilet paper to save money. Growing up, my mom was always the cheapest person I have ever met. It wasn't like we were struggling for money or anything. She just was that way from birth. Well, actually, I think I know why she was like this. It was because she grew up extremely poor and told me stories of how she had to eat grass as a child just to get by. Although I had sympathy for her situation as a child, it was no reason for her to put me through the same stuff. After all, she had a successful job as an advertising executive and would bring in up to $350,000 a year. This didn't stop her from not allowing me to have lights in my room and not allowing me to flush the toilet when I pee and telling that I could only flush the toilet when I go number 2. The final straw was when I had my first period while in school, and everyone started pointing at me and screaming. Naturally, I had nobody else to go to but my mother. When I told her I had got my period, she asked me what I wanted her to do about it. I asked her if I could get some tampons, and she laughed right in my face. She said that tampons were much too expensive, and instead instructed me to use rolled-up toilet paper to save money. It was ridiculous, because I knew for a fact she used real tampons for herself, but she just didn't care enough about me, I guess. After this happened, I spent hours crying. I missed my dad so much. My dad passed away when I was only 9, but he was my best friend. We had bonded over many things, the most of which being poker. He had taught me how to play poker when I was only 5 years old, and he quickly noticed how good I was at it. After he passed away, it was what I would do to feel close to him. Sometimes, I would sit in my room for hours and study poker. After I was done crying, I went outside to talk to my mom. I had to change her mind because I couldn't go without tampons. When I went out to talk to her, she immediately started yelling at me.
Lily, was that you who flushed the toilet earlier?
I don't know, maybe. Why?
Was it number 2?
Not this time, I just felt dirty and I wanted to flush and wash my hands.
You stupid child. Don't you know how expensive water is these days? You disgust me.
My mother's words cut like a knife, and I had to get out of the house. I went for a walk to the local park and sat down on a bench. It was then when I had noticed something that I had never noticed before. It was a group of grown-ups playing poker. I was surprised because I didn't even know that other people enjoyed playing poker like I did. I thought I was alone. But nope, there were a whole bunch of people laughing and playing my favorite game. I nervously approached the group and asked them if I could play a hand. A strange man took one look at me and shook his head.
Little kids can't play high-level poker like us. Maybe go find some little kid friends to play with.
No, please, I'm really good. Let's just play one hand.
I'll pass on that.
I wasn't going to be shut down by this random guy. I was going to show these people how good I was at poker. Just then I had a great idea. Hey, mister.
Yeah?
I will buy in for $50, and if I win, I win. But if I lose, I will walk away and never ask to play again.
Are you sure you want to lose that money?
I'm sure. Let's play. At this point, there was a crowd that had formed around us ready to see the match. The man had a smug look on his face that made it seem like he knew he was going to win, but I knew he wasn't. I ended up winning the hand, of course. He was appalled. He couldn't believe he had been beaten by a little girl. I continued to play the game and won hand after hand, winning money each time. More people continued to buy in because they all swore they could beat the little poker prodigy, but I still won every single time. By the time it was over, I had won almost $700. The first thing I did was run to the store to buy tampons. Then I went home to tell my mom the good news. But when I told her my story, she did not have the reaction I expected.
You made how much money? Give me that now.
She immediately took all of my money and stashed it away in her cupboard, which already had almost $100,000 in it. She told me that because I was her daughter, that the money I made belonged to her. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, she noticed the tampons in my hand and took those too. She said she would use them for herself. The next day was one of the hottest days of the year, but that didn't stop my mother from giving me the craziest order I have ever heard. She demanded that I go down to the park and play with more people to make her more money. I couldn't even believe it, but she was completely serious. I had no choice but to go down in the 100-degree weather and hustle more people in poker. She was turning a game that I loved into a chore, and I hated it. For the rest of that hot and miserable day, I acted as her poker slave, playing over and over again until my brain hurt. Of course, I still won every game, but I was starting to feel completely exhausted. After hours and hours, the strange man I had first played with approached me and expressed concern for my well-being. He insisted I take a break, but I told him I couldn't. I had made almost $2,000, but I knew that it wouldn't be enough for my mother. Just then, everything started to spin and I fell down. Everything went black all at once. I woke up in the hospital, very confused. The doctor told me I had a heat stroke and could have died. When I looked to my right, I expected to see my mother, but I didn't. Turns out she didn't want to waste the gas coming to the hospital. Instead, sitting in her place, was the man I played poker with. He was smiling, and he explained how he basically saved my life. I thanked him profusely. Then I started to break down. I told him everything. I told him about all of the abuse my mom had put me through and how she was stealing my money. He couldn't believe his ears, and he knew exactly what to do. He called the police and had me give a full statement from my hospital bed, and I told them everything as well. Everything that happened next felt like a blur. Turns out, the way my mom was treating me was completely illegal, and the police arrested her immediately. Then, the man offered to adopt me and act as my father, pledging to coach me to poker mastery and explain that I have what it takes to one day be the world champion. I accepted, of course, because this man cared more about me than anyone ever has, besides my real father. Next, we decided to sue my mother for being so frugal, and for stealing the money that was rightfully mine. The court decided in my favor, and I was rewarded $150,000 in settlement, which was the entire amount of money my evil mom had squirreled away in that cupboard. When it came time for my mom's abuse charges, she was given the maximum sentence, which was 15 years in a maximum security prison. Now she can be cheap all she wants while she's behind bars. Once my mother was locked away, and I was in the care of my poker coach, it was time to take things seriously. Over the next couple of years, I won multiple poker tournaments, and even was featured on the front page of the Poker Weekly magazine. My coach says that with enough studying, I'll be a world-renowned player in no time, and one day I will be the world champion of poker. As for what happened with my mother, well, I heard she was shanked in prison one day because she was abusing her cellmate. She ended up being okay, but I almost felt like she kind of deserved it. Do you think she got what she deserved? Or were her punishments too harsh?